allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Vice Chair, would you read our mission statement?
The mission of the Marshall Public School District is to educate, support, and prepare all learners for success.
Thank you. Next item is approval of the agenda. I'll need a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Motion has been made by Jeff and seconded by Sarah Brink to approve the agenda. Any discussion or changes? If not, I'll call for the vote. That is approved. Next item is Tiger Spotlight. Welcome, Southwest coaches and Jim and Tom and your guests. I can read it. This week we recognize our bus drivers for the work they do all year, especially this year. It's been a rather difficult year. Bus drivers have a big job and are essential to Marshall Public Schools. We place much responsibility on our drivers, and they complete the task of delivering our students safely and with care each and every day. Southwest Coaches has been a great partner for 66 years, and we continue to work together to provide this important service for our Marshall Public Schools students. Thank you to our transportation partners. We really appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We have a certificate we want to present to you guys too, if you want to come up and we'll take a picture. Or Matt will take a picture with you. Or she's going to do it. It's not always in the middle anymore. There you go. Thank you. Yep, thank you. Thank you guys.
Thank you, guys.
All appreciate all you do.
Thanks.
No more storms this year, so.
Yeah, will you get on that? Fix it, please?
Say hi to Mom and Dad, by the way. Good for them.
Complaining because it was cold. It was like in the 60s.
Oh, wow. That sounds lovely.
Next item is a public forum. Is there anybody from the public that would like to approach the board?
Jackie's dying too.
Yep. A presentation. Jackie, you're up. Thank you for coming.
Jackie kind of thought last week she might get out of this, but
I did with the storm, but all right, thanks. So my topic tonight is to talk about MTSS, and that's multi-tiered systems of support. Sorry. My reason for covering it this time is really just to kind of go through with you where some of our special education numbers are looking right now. I compiled 3 years worth of data, and so this would have been post-pandemic, the year after until this current year. And this first slide here really focuses in on those children before they get to school age, typical school age. Minnesota is a state where we also provide services to students from birth to 3. Federally, that's a law that a state can choose to adopt or not, and Minnesota has. And so this is the Help Me Grow referrals, and why it's called that is because it's a system run by the state where if a physician or a social worker, or a daycare provider, or a neighbor, or friend, or parent has concerns about a child, they can just hop onto the site, get information, make the referral, and the site just kind of magically redirects the referral to the resident district. And so you can see that in the 2021 school year, we had 52 referrals for the 0 to 3 age group. 21-22 is 57. And as of February, it is 53. And so that's concerning to me because the numbers would run all the way to July 1. And we're already at where we would be for the past 2 years. Some reasons for this, and this is not unique to Marshall. I mean, across the state, the referrals are considerably higher. I would say that when I attend the director forums, the person who's in charge of the early childhood department has great concerns, and each month they present the data. There's some months that are extremely high, some months that are more typical. And there's concerns. They're attributing it to the fact that they think that families didn't go to their well child visits with physicians. People stopped going to work, so they didn't need daycare. Daycare's closed, so kids didn't go and get those social environments. Families started to stay home more, and so they just didn't have those experiences in the community. And then there are just some societal things, I would say, that are impacting it in terms of the amount of technology and devices that are in kids' hands. And so we know that that slows down their social development, their speech and language, those types of things. But we also have a pretty significant number of children who require physical therapy, which would be those gross motor skills with core, sitting up, walking, crawling. Age 3 to 5 looks a little bit better. Sorry, Emily. If you could. That one is a little bit slower, but when I visit with our team, those referrals are now starting to pop in pretty frequently. Oh, okay, I'm good now.
Are the 3 to 5, are those children that are otherwise not already part of our school system through preschool?
No, they could be part of our school system. That's a good question. So, 3 to 5, why we divide that, and I should have said that, is 0 to 3. The model has to be that we're providing services in the child's natural environment. So that's home or daycare. 3 to 5, we have to get them into a school setting. So if they're not already in our preschool setting, then we have to make sure we have a spot available for them. So those 3 to 5 referrals are more impactful to the system because we are setting aside preschool spots for kids. And often it'll happen that by the end of the year, we're pretty crunched, where we're overfilling some of the classrooms. I kind of already talked about this with the possible reasons for increase, so we can go ahead and go. This then is our K-12 system, where I kind of just wanted to show a tracking of the numbers through. And so you can see that I've progressed the same core group of students through 3 years of school. So kindergarten, they were in kindergarten in 21, first grade in 22, second grade in 23, in the yellow boxes there. And why this is concerning to me, we might look at it and say, well, total, she's only saying we're up 14 across the whole district, which we're a big district, that's not too many. But it is concerning for me, again, just because those are spread out across all of our buildings. And then it becomes a challenge to staff because, we might have just enough that are pushing us up in a building where I need to look at another teacher, but that's happening in multiple buildings. And again, just kind of taking a look at those numbers and how the pandemic has impacted things. We're not unique. When I talk to other directors, the same thing is happening there, where certainly there are some holes in education of kids that they missed pieces, they didn't retain things. And so it's just something that we're going to use MTSS to backfill. So the reason for the K-12 referrals are high rates of absenteeism. So kids have had a hard time coming back to that routine and having to be in school every day. We have lagging academic gains with students just because of those holes that are in the education. Student mental health crisis, that's probably the biggest thing that I hear, is that we have kids struggling mental health, behaviorally, the behavior challenges, and then just the instructional loss that occurred. So when we look at MTSS, and you're going to have to click for me on all these because they're active, we look at our system as a whole. It's an umbrella. So within there, we've got our PLCs, our site improvement plans, and that leads to the personal goals. Just go ahead. And so with it, if you can go back one, within that, we have all of our other pieces. So we've got professional development, PBIS, curriculum design. These are all the pieces in the district that really fill MTSS as a whole and how we're going to support students. So when we look at MTSS, it really focuses on all the big areas: academic, behavior, social, and emotional. And again, it's active, sorry. So within MTSS, you used to probably hear about the RTI model, response to intervention. And I would say RTI has become MTSS, but I would still say that RTI itself lies under that MTSS model. And so we've got that intervention model, the pyramid, where we expect kids to be. So when we have tier 1, this is where 80% of our kids should be. And that's just good core instruction that happens in the classroom. And this is all students, all settings. We're responding to those student needs in the core. We're trying to be preventative and proactive. We're working with teachers to have good classroom management to manage some of those behaviors. Tier 2 is about 15% of the students. This is where we're going to start to take a closer look at who needs that extra support and assistance, providing some interventions. This should only be for some students. It should be supplemental or in addition to the core. It could still be class-wide or small group, and we're going to start progress monitoring here. Tier 3 should only be about 5%. This is where we feel that students need that more intensive intervention. And it's going to be more individualized. We're going to probably do some diagnostic testing, and the intensity is going to be pretty high because this is kind of our last hurrah before we're going to refer them for a special ed evaluation. And then this is just what the tier would look like altogether. As a student goes up the tier, that's when the needs are becoming more concerning. When we identify students, we're going to use those common formative assessments that the teachers have developed. We're going to have them analyze student performance, determine if we need to supplement the core, because sometimes we might go back and say, oh, it looks like we are missing something in the core, or we can see that this is a hole that's developed over time, and so we're going to ask them to do that. Or we might be developing some small groups. When we think about interventions, they should always be evidence-based. It should be matched to the deficit that we found for the student. We do want them to use the intervention in the appropriate group size, and so when they research them, that's all part of that research, is how many kids should it be, how frequent should it happen, how long should it happen, and at this level, they're provided by classroom teachers, reading specialists, or EL. When we want to intensify that intervention, because from tier 2 to tier 3, we do want to see that happening, we're going to increase the length of the sessions, maybe increase the number of sessions. We might say, well, let's go to a smaller group size. We might consider the setting that it's occurring. And so do we need a quieter environment that we just need to move the intervention somewhere else? We're going to work with the teacher to try to embed more practice opportunities during the day, and then align instructional routines and language with the core environment. And so that is just making sure all teachers are using the same thing. So when we talk about multiplication, if we're going to use product as the answer, we want everybody saying that instead of some saying answer and some saying product, because that's confusing for kids. So you can see that as we move up the tiers, the intensity becomes greater, and the strategies are still occurring in the general ed setting here. Any questions for me?
Concerning the mental health crisis, do we refer those kids out, or do we have people trained to address that in our system, or how does that work?
So we have a partnership with Greater Minnesota, and so they've got people in the buildings, but I think they fill up pretty quickly.
So we'd start with our internal staff, with our internal counselors, social workers, social emotional learning support people, and then we make the referral to Greater Minnesota. But at the same time, we're making referrals. We don't say it has to be Greater Minnesota. We'll tell a family, here are the options in town. Pick what's
resources
best for your
too.
family, because that's all outside of the school. Just
Sure.
it happens at school for that one. Yep.
How long does it take to change from tier 1 to tier 2? Does that vary?
It does. Really, we shouldn't have a set time limit, but we do say 6 to 8 weeks is really what we want to see the intervention occurring, because it's easy to say, well, yep, I tried this a couple of times and I'm done and we're going to refer them. And so we really want to see it happening over time.
My follow-up question to that would be, how do you find enough teaching staff when you have to change
when you have to change it? Well, so ideally, when we're at tier 2, that should still be happening as much as possible right within that general ed setting. And so a lot of our teachers will do some reading groups and things like that, and we would encourage them to use the reading group as an opportunity to zero in a bit more. But yeah.
I'd say that happens a lot with our instructional coaches, K through 8. We've got the instructional coaches on site at each location, and they're helping with a lot of that work, helping monitor what interventions in place, how long have we been doing it, is it effective, is it not effective, do we need to try something else? All those things that Jackie talked about in her presentation too. But those people have been a great resource in this work, 'cause this is a lot.
Yeah.
And the idea is we want to support kids at the most basic level, get as many kids supported within tier 1 that we can before we get to special ed and 504s and those other referrals that some families need too. But
from my perspective, where I have a concern is we're required to use standardized tests to know if students are eligible. But those tests were all standardized pre-pandemic, right? And so the standard looks different. And so the chances of us testing and having them meet eligibility is probably greater than what it was before, just because the standards look different for that age. So. Any other
You and
questions?
your staff do a heck of a job.
Well, thank you.
thank you, Jackie.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you, Jackie.
Next item is a consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Bill Mosel, second by Bill Swope to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Oh, we don't have to discuss the consent agenda. I'll call for the vote. That is approved. Next item is the financials. Are you going to go through those? Or?
Sarah's.
Oh, Sarah. Treasurer Sarah.
I just had Deanna just give me a couple things that he wanted to point out. He just said, for the bills, he said, food service is higher, as this report contains both January and February's Taher bills. Community service has the ABES quarterly payment to the collaborative schools. Debt service in January, we pay principal payment along with interest on our bonds. June, we'll pay the second interest payment. And do you have the treasurer's report too? No, not yet.
I should have done the motion in second first before we discussed it. So I'll make a motion to approve the bills.
I'll second.
Thanks, Jeff.
Want to repeat it all? No, I'm just kidding.
You all took really good notes, right?
Any further discussion on the bills? I'll call for the vote. That is approved. Now you can go to the next, the treasurer's report.
Treasurer's report, he said we're only 3.27% off of our general fund budget number compared to 9.88 that we were off at this time last year. Expenditure percentages is in line with previous years, and revenue percentage is up from last year at this time.
Thank you, Sarah. Next item is the board forum. Any reports or updates from anyone? Not, we'll move on to the administrator's report. Jeremy.
All right. In my report, first thing I want to call out, February is School Board Recognition Month. And to celebrate our school board a little bit, we have something for you guys. We've actually worked with students across the district, and Zach Lenz, he is a high school student in our high school who is very interested in video production. I'd seen a video he had done. We worked with him. He got some video clips. We prepared this. We want to share with you guys. So we'll send it to you. We're going to post it on our website too, but it's students from across the district. The first couple, they speak in Spanish and Somali, and they say thank you to you guys. And then it's a recognition video, just thanks for all that you do. So it's a really nice video. Zach did a really nice job with it, and we were pretty excited to show it. So we'll figure out the technical difficulties and send it out to you and get it posted to share with the community as well. It's pretty cool. I'll move forward with Parkside. In her report this month, she shares they recently celebrated the 100th day of school. Hard to believe it's been 100 days. Thursday, February 9th was that day. So Parkside and Southview, they both do it. They dress the kids up and just celebrate all the learning they do. 100 days smarter. They have a lot of practice with counting and such, learning numbers and such at Parkside as well, the youngest students on that day. I also want to share at preschool and kindergarten registration for next year is officially open. We are hosting an annual open house this week on March 2nd from 4:30 until 6:30. They'll be combining the two events this year for preschool and kindergarten to be together at Parkside in hopes of making it more convenient for parents who have students with children at both those levels. So look forward to welcoming everyone to that event this week. Southview, a lot of recognition this month, different things taking place across some buildings. One thing we want to call out is Chase Pollock. He's a third grade teacher at Southview Elementary. He was recently named the Class 3A Baseball Coach of the Year. So thank you, Chase, for all you do for the students at Southview and on the baseball diamond. Big in our community and certainly with our students. He's one of our loved coaches and teachers at Southview's elementary school. February 7th and February 14th, the teachers at Southview, they met with instructional coach Jody Lixton and assistant principal Amanda Grinauger, looked at reading data in the classroom. So this happens. It was a big mid-year check. Math teachers also met with Mr. Thor, talking about a lot of those MTSS things like what Jackie was just talking about. The data that's been collected, making sure they're supporting students and making the progress we need. So it's been a lot of work that our teachers and staff at those buildings has been doing. Middle school, she first calls out the 7th and 8th graders who competed at the 9th grade league state tournaments on January 21st. This was wrestling that she was talking about. They had the highest placing event in school history with 3rd place at the state tournament for 7th and 8th grade wrestlers. Congratulations to them. Also a big shout out to Esther Say. She qualified for the state tournament. Esther won the section tournament and represented the high school, will represent the high school at the state tournament March 4th. Esther is the first girl in Marshall history to accomplish this great milestone, so congratulations to Esther. Also, congratulations to the high school, or to the middle school dance team. They received 2nd place in varsity kick, 3rd in varsity jazz, and 3rd in junior varsity jazz. She also shares that St. Peter this year hosted this year's one-act plays. Our one-act plays this year, we ended up being middle school kids. It comprised our entire team this year. So they participated in St. Peter. 7 thespians represented Marshall High School and performed the play Boxes. The students proudly placed 5th place this year, so they did a very nice job. A new director this year, and they did a really nice job. So congratulations to them. Also, the mathletes at the middle school, they participated in Southwest Chapter Math Counts competition at SMSU, and they earned 1st place, which also gets them to a trip to the state Math Counts that is in March. So congratulations to them. A lot of fun things taking place at the middle school, and she's got pictures of all these kids and such on her attached to her report. High school, Brian calls out semester 1 grades are in and they look great. Thank you to everyone, including students, for hard work. 3 out of 4 of the grades had 90% or more of students passing all of their classes. So that was a huge achievement. I know that Brian's very humble and he will put it to a lot of things. I think the bar work that's going on and the efforts with Brian and the whole team at the high school, that has had a huge effect on our students. So it's really nice to see these results. All grade levels were improved as compared to where they performed a year ago at the same time. And he shares that for the first time since he's been tracking this information, the school average of the percentage of students passing classes was above 90%. For 9th graders, it's the highest it's been since the 2007-2008 school year, so the highest in 15 years with percentage of kids passing all their classes. So that's really great to see. Brian also shares that MHS junior Georgia Rabe was named one of the 15,000 National Merit Scholarship finalists. Selection of some 7,200 Merit Scholarship winners from the group and of more than 15,000 is now taking place later in March. So we'll find out who the winners are with that. Brian also shares they've been working on testing format at the high school. Just looking at how we've tested in the past, got a lot of kids take a lot of tests at the high school, and when we're testing at our elementary schools and even our middle school, 6th graders all in one room, 7th graders in one room. High school, it's harder because we have grade levels mixed together in classes. So when we're giving the 10th grade reading test and the junior level math test, we might have a group of kids gone for half of a day or a whole block, and then the next group is gone the next day. We end up losing a lot of instructional time. So what they've been working on is gathering some input from different stakeholders, talking to the staff, and just coming up with a different plan to do that. What we're looking at doing this spring, and we'll bring some changes, we'll get some communication out to families, but changing that up and doing testing day on May 2nd. We'll run, the school day will still start at 8 o'clock. We'll run a 2-hour late schedule within the day. So the first 2 hours we'll just give the state tests, and then at 10 o'clock we can go ahead and start our schedule and move forward. That should give most of the kids a chance to complete the test without interruption to the academic day like it's been. For freshmen and seniors that aren't testing that day, we'll have a spot. So the buses will run regular routes, regular times. There won't be a change in our school schedule, like in general. So those students that come into school at 8 o'clock will have a spot for them to be and things for them to do. But other freshmen and seniors that choose to come in at 10 o'clock that day because they're not testing could do so. And the day would just start at 10 o'clock with regular schedule that day. So high schools put a lot of work into this plan and coming up with just a better way to make this happen. And I think it makes sense. Teachers and staff will be helping either as a proctor or supervisor. Everyone's going to have an assignment on that shift because we have about 450 students that we need to assess during that time at the high school. So appreciate the work they've done on that, and just watch for more communication coming out to families in the near future about that, so everyone knows what to expect on May 2nd. Maytech, Amanda shares that Mrs. Kern, she's the counselor at Maytech, she's been working to implement a self-care corner, just a spot for some additional resources for students who might need to work through some different things. She's got a binder of some coping strategies, some fidgets, some mental health resources, and other activities that students can benefit from that's available for them just to come and grab, even if there's not a counselor available at the time when they need it. So some self-help things for them. Activities, and Mr. Gruning shares speech is midway through the season. They've had great finishes, including first place at St. Michael Albertville. This was now 2 weeks ago because our meeting has been moved back. Several varsity team members will once again be making the trip to Harvard. I believe that trip has taken place as well. Boys basketball team hosted the 1963 team. So that was the state championship team. That was fun. That happened on February 4th. 3 of the members of the 1963 team were able to attend, and they got to pull out the trophy and just hear some stories from that year. So that was a fun event at that basketball game. He also shares that the girls hockey team lost New Ulm in triple overtime. They had a great game, a great season. They ended up finishing 12-12-3 and say goodbye to a great group of seniors with that team. In Beth's report, she shares that we're working on finishing up the Achievement Integration Plan for the next 3-year period. That's renewed once every 3 years. That has to be submitted by March 15th, so we're close to complete with that. The goals this year in this new plan include closing the achievement gap, including graduation grades and equitable access to diversity-trained teachers. We've really worked to continue to align the A&I plan to our World's Best Workforce plan. She also shares that staff members were able to participate in professional development opportunities throughout the day on February 15th. That was one of the days that was a snow day. So we, knowing that we had to reschedule that day for students, we're looking at March 27th. That was scheduled to be a professional development day. So essentially we flipped those 2 days. We took, in anticipation of having a day coming up, we found some valuable, what we felt was valuable professional development opportunities for staff. So they were able to do that remotely on February 15th. So we had a day that makes up that March 27th day for staff, and then students come in at later dates. That worked out really well. We also had non-certified staff participate in that day. We had some trainings, including adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs training for them, understanding behaviors, and a live Q&A session with our behavior coach. They could ask questions of T. Brenner, who they typically don't have access to today because she's busy doing other things. So we had a very productive day that day. And then certified staff did safe schools trainings, pieces that they need to complete their licensure renewals, which is what we typically offer in the March 27th date. So Beth did a really nice job organizing that day and making that a good use of the snow day that we had. Special ed, Jackie shares, she's been doing every month just highlighting one program. This time she talked about the early childhood special ed program. We have 3 different types of services that continue to occur there. And she talked a little bit about that in her presentation tonight, but the children in ages birth to 3 years receive services in the natural environment, which is home or daycare. And at that level, really it's working with children who are finding who's eligible for services and supporting parents who are working with the children and their developing needs. As a child reaches age 3, then we start looking at bringing them into the school setting, like she shared here too, and she just describes that process in her report this month. In Mary Kay's report, she shares that the American Indian Education Aid Program is administered by the MDE APAC committee. She wants to call a thank you to Rianne Denny, Michelle Knife-Sterner, and Shelley Castaneda. They are the 3 continuing representatives on that committee. They meet monthly, and they're working on the plan and meeting the goals within that plan. One of the big events that we've done the last few years through that group is a spring event for American Indian families. Also, she says they're determining the level of success within the goals, including implementing an opportunity for classroom teachers. So there's some grant money available. Teachers can reach out and get some resources for their classrooms that support the work that group is doing. So that grant opportunity is open, and staff has been applying for different things they can get there. That brings us to Dion's report. He shares that due to the Minnesota Health Insurance Transparency Act, the Marshall Public Schools needs to go through a health insurance RFP process. This is the second year of our current contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield. So we are going through that RFP process this spring for the 23-24 and 24-25 school years. That has started, and he and Kate are working on that. He also shares that they are working with CBiz, a consulting company that's been chosen to assist with the compensation or job description study that we're doing. This isn't a requirement for staff, but we're encouraging employees to complete it, filling out updated job descriptions and looking at the compensation categories that everyone's in. So that work has all started. He also shares that Canoga Park Daycare, they're subleasing the space at the Maytech site. They are opening again with infant openings. They should be filled or at capacity soon. And then additional openings would depend on additional staffing. So they had reached out and just want to share that that's a change in that facility. Finally, in Deanne's report, he shared a list of some LTFM items that we're looking at doing this next year. The full list is attached to his report, so the board can pull it up and look. But things on the list for this summer include a gym floor refinishing at the high school, carpet replacement. We did middle school last year, doing the high school this next year. Sanding and base, replacing some sand base with dirt and sod on the football practice field at the high school is going to happen this year. Resurfacing the tennis court, some mill and overlay in the parking lots, including in that gym parking lot. There's a little lift went from the parking lot down to the bus loop area. That's a concern when we're removing snow, so we're going to make that level, all kind of one level surface in that parking lot. Working on the irrigation piece at the high school and replacing some floor tile that's coming loose in the locker room areas of the high school. At the middle school, there's some smoke dampers, some additional pumps on the boiler system that need to be placed as part of the HVAC work that we've been doing at the middle school the last couple of years. Basketball hoop systems in the main gym need some replacement, so some automatic electric movement with those is going to happen. Some additional floor tiles, acoustic panels in the gym. It's part of an overall gym project. Some new LVT in the cafeteria. Gym floor this summer will be replaced, will be sanded down, new logos. We still have the old Tiger in the gym here, so as part of that project, we'll get that all redone this summer. And we'll be doing some painting in the gymnasium, some additional LVT. Parkside is working on snow guards for the roof. That continues to be an issue that needs to be, it seems to come up quite often. Replacing the cafeteria ceiling. So this is not the brass part in the center of the ceiling. This is the false ceiling around. That's in need of replacement at Parkside. Southview gym floor has its annual refinish, and some concrete in the loading dock area at Southview. So a lot of items on the list for this summer that he wanted to share with you. That's all part of our LTFM projects. Questions on any of that? Quiz you later. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Let me get to the.
Next item is the first review of policies 525 to 530. Any discussion or questions on those? Okay, moving on. Second review of policies 516 to 523. Any questions?
Both of these rounds are just kind of general updates, nothing big with the changes.
Okay. Action item, approval of contracted service with the Southwest West Central Service Co-op. I'll need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Bill Moso, seconded by Bill Swope. Any discussion?
Just our general annual contract renewal with Service Co-op, we reviewed with the different departments as to what our needs are, what our anticipated needs are for next year, and we feel this is a good contract to move forward with.
Thank you. I'll call for the vote. That is approved. Next action item is approval of snow day makeup plan. Need a
We've done a
motion.
lot of homework on this, Jeremy.
Our team has worked hard on this.
I'll make a motion. I'll need a second.
Second.
Bill. Discussion.
So I'll just kind of share where we're at. We've had a lot of snow days this year. And this is looking at the full days we've missed school. This does not include days we've had early releases or late starts, that kind of thing too. So a lot of discussion about what we do going forward, because we are at the point that with the changes I'll walk through here shortly, we have exhausted really the opportunities we have within this school year to just keep the end of the school year where it's at. What we're looking at, I mentioned earlier, the March 27th date becoming a student contact day. That was originally down to be a staff work day, so we flipped that, and the staff had already had the work day. So that would replace the February 15th. February 23rd, we did not have school, or I'll do the 22nd first. February 22nd, we did not have school. We also did certified staff PD that day, so that would, we have that listed as replaced with June 1st. Right now, May 31st is a noon dismissal day, and then June 1st is not listed as a student contact day right now, so we'd be flipping that. The 31st becomes a full day. June 1st would be a student contact day, noon dismissal. That would be our last day of school. Graduation is down to be on June 2nd. We'd like to leave that where it is, and ideally we'd like to not come back after that point. So that would be replacing the February 22nd. We did not have school. February 23rd, we did not have school as well. So the remaining snow makeup date on our calendar is April 6th. So I'm asking that we make that a student contact date. That's the Thursday before Easter. The reason the 22nd came first is because we did the PD that day, and June 1st would have been PD day. So that makes up the PD day for staff. That's why those are flipped. With the changes that we're proposing, I'd like to then also move the end of Q3 to March 31st. It just makes more sense with the changes in the calendar. Give us a couple more days in that quarter. The quarter looks longer. We've lost a lot of instructional time in Q3. And then Q4 would begin on April 3rd, be Monday, April 3rd. Otherwise, the calendar would show a Q4 starting on like a Tuesday. And we did that with Q2. It's just, it's less than ideal to start a quarter in the middle of the week. It's challenging for staff to do that. So that would make up the days that we've missed so far, catch us up with the instructional time we need. I'm concerned it is not March yet. We tend to have snow days yet in March and April in Minnesota, and I'd really like to avoid coming into that second week of June. I know that with families planning for summer activities and different churches and such in town, I know there's different things that happen that first week of June typically. So the other thing that I'm proposing as our team has worked through a plan for going forward is our Wednesdays are early dismissals. I'd like to make those 3:05 dismissals for the remainder of the year. That gets us an additional 45 minutes of instructional time every Wednesday. If we start on March 8th, which is what I'm asking, going from March 8th to the end of the year, that's 12 Wednesdays. That would have been the 220 dismissals. That'd be enough time, enough instructional time banked that we could have 2 additional snow days without making up the time later in the year for students. So that could keep our end of the calendar year on June 1st where it is. So that would be the proposal we move forward. Question comes in what happens with PLCs that are happening on those Wednesdays. We are working with the EA on a plan for PLCs. This is all happening quickly. I don't have the full plan ready there yet, so I'm planning on by next week's board meeting, the way this is falling out, board meetings 2 weeks in a row, we'd have a plan for what those PLCs will look like. Working with EA leadership, there's seen some time to additionally work out how we do that piece, but I do think we need the 3:05 dismissals, buy us some extra time available for if we have more snow days. Certainly also recognize that families have made arrangements and that 2:20 dismissal is what we do on Wednesdays. And, at one time a discussion was, do we even try and start that as early as this week? I don't think that's fair to families that need time to arrange for pickups and what to do with kids and stuff when that changes. We recognize that causes additional planning for families. Want to give them time to do that, but I do think we're going to need that additional instructional time this school year.
That's logical.
Have you talked with activities about those Wednesday times and then also like local organizations that have the after-school stuff for Wednesday?
We haven't had a lot of conversations yet. We've had internal conversations that we know this is going to be impactful. Want to see where the board is at with it, and some of those conversations are going to have to continue, of course, with the activities. It's going to be some adjustments, but we feel we're not having events on Wednesday nights. It's the practices that we can move.
And I don't want to jinx anything, but what happens if we don't have any more snow days? Would we
Right.
just have the 2 extra days?
Then we've got the
Okay.
extra time. Yeah. Yeah. I would love that to be the case.
Right, right.
Just if we don't do it now, we don't have enough Wednesdays to bank the time to save us 2 days either, right? And I hate to take that because that PLC time on Wednesdays, that's a big deal. That's a gift that our community has given us to be able to do that with our groups, with our teachers. That job embedded professional development is a big part of your QComp plan, and this would have to be just for the remainder of this year to figure out, because we've had such a large amount of snow days this year. Certainly not something we'd want to make a permanent change.
What's been your initial response from the association?
Initial response has been positive. Certainly understand that we've had so much missed instructional time. Certainly the feedback is it causes challenges too. Like Sarah mentioned, there's things that happen on Wednesday afternoons that people are already planned around, and we need to work through those pieces. And I know the timeline, this comes quickly when we weren't anticipating another 2.5 day storm last week, when we've exhausted now the options we have within our calendar. We want to make sure when we have to meet the 165 instructional days is what the state requires. And for high school kids, we're tight. That's 1,020 hours. We're right there. We have no wiggle room at the high school.
Well, thank you, Jeremy, for all the work you did on this.
Question, legislatively, do you think they'll pass the extension of the 5 days,
For the e-learning days,
e-learning days?
there's a lot of conversation on it. I would say I'm optimistic that would pass.
I would hope so.
For this
It's
year.
logical.
Yeah, the bill that I've seen out there would extend that to 10 e-learning days. That would be very helpful this year. But
Good.
right now, those days,
Not this year,
Right
but
there.
if they put it in place for next year, that's huge.
right? Yep. Right. It seems like every
Mr.
few
Chair,
years we get
I
something.
know it's confusing for families, but student time in school is very important, and they get more out of it in the fall, winter, and spring than they do in summer.
Yep.
So I think it's a very positive move.
We don't want to go too far into June.
Right.
June 1st is far enough. All right, I'll call for the vote. That is approved.
Thank you for your work on that, Jeremy.
We'll work
Meeting
on
is
family
adjourned.
communications tomorrow.
Thanks, everyone.